Alright, let's take a look at where we left off last time. I'm going to go ahead and press play. You can see that we have physics and our ball is rolling. In this video, what we want to do is be able to move it. So I'm pressing A now, and then S, D, and then W, so that we can kind of use that same physics that we created in the previous tutorial to make our character move. Alright, so let's go ahead and stop the play mode for a second. And I'm going to sort of go a little bit quicker because we've created this in the previous tutorials and I don't want to bore you. Go ahead and make a folder called _scripts, and you do that by right-clicking, create, and then folder. Next, within that folder, go ahead and create another script called player movement. And if you recall, you just right-click, create, C# script, and then just name that one player movement. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and I'm going to open this up and I'm going to show you the code within the player movement script. Alright, starting at the top here, we created a variable called rigid body, and that variable has a data type of rigid body. You can see that here. So when we go into our stored method, which if you recall, it is the first method that is called automatically by Unity when the project plays, it'll get that component and it'll store a reference to that component within this rigid body variable. If we go into our update function, this might look familiar to you from before, but we made two variables that can store a decimal value, just like this speed one here. It's storing a decimal value of 10. And the first decimal value that it's storing is when we press our A and D key. And if you remember, go back and watch some of the other videos where we talk about player movement. But when I press the A or D key, it's going to give me a value of between -1 and 1. And then it's going to store that value inside of move horizontal. And then we are accessing the vertical input component, which has the code that references the W and S key. And anytime we press W and S, it's again -1 to 1, and we're storing that value inside of move vertical. Now what we can do is we can access the force component of our rigid body. And that force component is actually adds a little bit of force to our ball, physics force. And we're going to access a vector 3. And if you recall, that's the X, Y, and Z. So when we push our horizontal buttons, which are A and D, it's going to add the that amount of information to the X-axis. We're not doing anything in Y here. We have it set to 0. And then Z is going to move vertical. So that's forward and back. Now, if we don't have this multiplication by speed, it's going to run very slowly. So let me pause the video and we'll take a look at that again in action. So here we are back in Unity, and if I run my game and we have our sphere selected, you can see here we have this component for 10. Now if I go in here and I press A, you can see I'm moving left, D, I'm going right, S is down, and W is up. Now you might want to increase your play area. I kind of like it small. It adds a little bit of stress to the player, a little bit of anxiety, and so it just adds an extra layer of gameplay mechanics to our game. So what we'll do in the next video is we'll actually create some pickup objects, and as we go through those pickup objects, we'll increment a variable.